You're listening to Visions, a series of visits to almost everywhere. I'm your host and fellow traveler, Herb Malsman, and all of that we're going to be doing over the next couple of months are New York icons. And a major New York icon is Yankee Stadium, the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, and that's where we are now. This is the first time anywhere near the field, on field level at Yankee Stadium since the 60s, perhaps. We're with Tony Morante, who's, I guess, the voice of the Yankees tour-wise. Tony, hi, and give us some of your background, and we'll take it from there.
Hi, Herb. I am the director of Stadium Tours, and started here in 1958 as an usher, and I did that part-time, and how bad could that have been, coming and watching the Yankees and making a few bucks in doing it? So that worked very well. And then in 1973, I came aboard full-time when Mr. Steinbrenner brought into the organization, and he opened up a group and season sales department. And I got in at that point, and it wasn't until 1986 that we opened the tours here, and I've been doing them since then. So I actually watched this whole tour program grow from seed. And one of the main features of the tour is where you're standing right now, Herb.
Monument Park. I'm just going to go over a little bit of the history of, like, Monument Park wasn't always there. At one time there were three monuments, and I think I'm looking at the three original: Miller, James Huggins, Henry, Louis Gehrig, George, Herman, Babe Ruth. Just Gehrig, 1903 through 1941. Manager of the Yankees, Huggins, what does it look like to me? 1918 or so, 1929, and George Herman Ruth, 1895 through 1948. These three monuments weren't always back here. They were in just about dead center field, almost dead center field. Is that correct?
Right. Now, you mentioned some dates before, so I didn't want those folks to get confused with the dates that you gave them. Now, what you heard about Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, those were the days that they were born and passed away, but the date for Miller Huggins was the dates that he was manager of the New York Yankees, and as you can see, he brought the first pennants in World Series to the New York Yankees. He was actually the first monument that was erected back in 1932, and it was at the behest of the New York Baseball Writers chapter, who must have had some pull, because they were able to effect a monument actually going onto a playing field. If you think about that for a moment, Herb, how odd does that seem? But yet it had passed through all the bureaucracy that was at that time. Maybe not quite as much as it is today, but still you had to clear hurdles. But Miller Huggins' monument, being that he was so well beloved by the press, was the first one that went up in 1932. And then 9 years later, the pride of the Yankees, Lou Gehrig, the greatest first baseman of all time, the greatest ball player ever to come out of New York City, who unfortunately died of a very tragic disease called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And
which, of course, now is Lou Gehrig's disease.
They call it the Lou Gehrig's disease. And not only did Lou Gehrig pass away with that disease, but also another great Yankee by the name of Catfish Hunter a little later on. But the Gehrig's monument went up in 1941, and as you could see, the greatest of them all, Babe Ruth.
Right, and this was right in center field, and it was amazing. Pearsall used it to rest one day while they were making a pitching change.
More than once, Herb. More than once. When Boston was making pitching changes, he invariably would sit down in the shade of the monuments while Boston was making those pitching changes back in the 50s. A great ball player,
True.
But he sort of marched to the beat of a different drum.
Right. Okay, we're gonna be taking a look at Yankee Stadium today, getting a kind of painting a picture of Yankee Stadium. But really, when it comes to the Yankees, you have to paint a picture of the look of the New York Yankee themselves. The facial hair thing. There's a certain decorum. Yankees are expected to look like and act like, and the uniforms, I think they were I'm going to give you a little history. As far as I know, they were the first team to wear numbers on their uniforms. Okay, so that's one thing, that it's not the first team, but it's the only team now today, either home or away, that do not use names on their uniform. You're shaking your head no. What does that mean?
No, on both counts.
Okay.
The Yankees weren't the first to use the numbers. The Cleveland Indians actually wore it for a couple of years, in 1916 and 1917. They just wore it on their sleeves, but with no rhyme or reason. It wasn't until 1929 when, once again, the Cleveland Indians beat out the Yankees by 1 day, putting numbers on the uniform. The Yankees put the numbers on to identify the batting order. That's why Babe Ruth wore number 3, Lou Gehrig number 4, and so on and so forth. And by the end of 1932, all Major League teams were mandated to adopt that numerical practice. As far as the pinstripes were concerned, they were actually introduced by the Boston Beaneaters and Chicago Cubs in 1907. The Yankees adopted them in 1912. They went off the uniform for a couple of years until Jacob Ruppert brought into the organization in 1915. And he was of an aristocratic family who were owners of a brewery, the Rupert Knickerbocker Brewery, which was very popular here, always in the top 5 from 1857 through 1965. And he wanted to see his players more nattily dressed. He had that aristocratic background, and so they reintroduced the pinstripes. And contrary to popular belief, it wasn't to make Babe Ruth look slimmer. Babe Ruth didn't come aboard for 5 years after that.
Okay, and what about the names on the backs of the uniforms?
The names, never on the Yankee home uniforms. They wore them briefly in 1969.
Really?
On the road uniforms, but it didn't sit too well with the organization. CBS had the Yankees at that time, and they decided not to go ahead and put them on the home uniforms, but that was just very briefly. There are other teams that don't wear the names on the backs of the uniform till today. The Boston Red Sox home uniforms don't have them.
But the away
the Giants and the Giants and the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I don't think we're in on either home or road, if I'm mistaken. But they keep changing. We have had that same look all throughout the century. Those pinstripes became synonymous with greatness through the years. So for traditional purposes, they never changed.
Right. And there was also a time when these could be urban legends we're talking about right now. There was a time that the Yankees never buttoned the top button of their jersey. Any information on that?
Not to my knowledge. I've heard of that, but it was nothing that I could actually say definitively.
Right.
Yeah.
It always seemed to be that top button open. Okay, let's talk about you're wearing your mustache. Let's talk about facial hair in the Yankees.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you might be
Johnny Davis.
Yeah, there's nothing underneath the chin, underneath the lip. Right. As far as the organization is concerned, that's the look that they want to present to the public. They don't want more than that. Those looks could get unruly, and that's not the image of the New York Yankees. That's not who they are. So it's very simple.
I think the mustaches right now, I remember Ron Guidry had one. Mm-hmm. I think Fasano. Right. I think Herman Munson had a mustache. Don Mattingly.
A few guys had mustaches and took them off. Donnie's on and off, but you never could tell from one month to the next when he feels like changing.
Johnny Damon had a big change.
Yeah, and I noticed they're starting to put him back on again, and I saw Giambi wear a grown one, and then he took it off. But so, you look around, you might see one or two popping up here and there.
Okay, let's take a look around Monument Park. We'll look at some of the monuments, and then we're going to kind of work on the field of it?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. We're here in the most scenic part of Yankee Stadium. If you're here, folks, to see, or if unfortunately you're not here to see this beautifully decorated area of Yankee Stadium, it's the most exclusive part of not only Yankee Stadium, but any sports arena for that matter. We have beautiful white begonias off to our right. We have a lot of different foliage here and trees and brushes in a setting that makes these monuments really exclusive, makes this Monument Park so distinctive. And you might be aware that we will eventually be moving from here, and in April of 2009 we'll be across the street on the other side of 161st Street. These monuments, plaques, and retired numbers that you see right now, Herb, will be going with us, and hopefully in a setting similar to this. We're going to try to replicate what we have here and bring that into the new facility.
And it's going to be Yankee Stadium.
Yes, it is.
It's not going to be Minute Maid.
No, we didn't. We don't ascribe to that corporate venture, not yet.
Okay, we're looking at Joseph Paul DiMaggio, Joe DiMaggio, Joltin' Joe, the Yankee Clipper, 1914-1999. Recognized as baseball's greatest living player. Well, of course, at the time, lifetime batting average 325, MVP 3 times, selected All-Star Game 13.
Right.
Wow. American League batting title 39, 40. The year he was born, 1940. Elected to the Hall of Fame, 1955. So that's Joseph Paul DiMaggio.
Yeah, Joe D came aboard in 1936, and he played through 1951. Out of those 16 years, actually only played 13. He was involved in World War II for 3 years. But out of the 13 years he played, he led the Yankees to 10 World Series, of which they won 9. And he also had that 56-game hitting streak in 1941, which many people feel might be the most difficult of offensive streaks to break. We're watching Derek Jeter.
23 now?
And he's at 21. Last night was a very crazy situation where he did play the game. He walked 3 times and was hit by a pitch, so he really wasn't considered in an at-bat in a game. So his streak is still intact.
Still intact.
Yeah. Yeah, so now we're watching this, and you know, all the anxiety and everything. Can you imagine that this is only the 21st game that he's hit successfully, and what it's going to be like, the anxiety as days pass by, and hopefully they do pass by. Records are made to be broken, and I think Joe D would not mind seeing a player of Derek Jeter's status.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's a very focused guy, so why not Jeter?
Not only focused, but he's also a classy individual. The fans love him here. They just adore him because he's just a wonderful guy. You could see the enthusiasm that he exudes when he's playing the game. There are very few people that you could look around and see actually enjoying playing the game, and Derek is certainly one of them.
Right.
And to see that the possibility, well, we're so far away from where Joe D is at this point, and I'm sure it's not going to be easy, but we hope that he might make a good run at it.
You know, he had to deal with Heinz ketchup, you know,
yeah.
57, he did back to 57.
But after that one,
he picked up another streak.
17 games after that.
Yeah.
It's just like nothing, so.
Yeah, Heinz 57, they were ready to go with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at Jacob Rupert. And I guess we'll start right here. And, of course, the commemoration to 9/11.
Well, where it actually all starts is with Babe Ruth. Make no mistake about it. We wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for the efforts of the Babe. Mm-hmm. He came to the New York Yankees in 1920, purchased from the Boston Red Sox at a cost of $100,000 and a $350,000 loan with Fenway Park as collateral. Yeah. And he responded that year by hitting 54 home runs, which even by today's standards is a lot. Right. But if you consider that when he hit those 54 back in 1920, there was no other team in the American League that had hit more than 50 homers combined.
Right. And he was hitting a lot.
You could imagine the impact that he made on the game.
He was hitting a lot of his home runs into the right field stands, I guess. That was they had that friendly porch out there.
No, this wasn't in Yankee Stadium. They were playing in the Polo Grounds.
Okay.
You just got a little ahead of me.
Okay.
They were playing in the Polo Grounds at that time, and he responded that year by hitting 54 home runs, which even by today's standards is a lot. No other team in the American League had hit 50. The impact was tremendous. So the people started to come out in droves to see the Babe do his thing. That was all well and good for the Yankees and their fans, but keep in mind they were playing in the Polo Grounds, the home of the New York Giants, and it created a very untenable situation for the Giant management to endure. So they asked the Yankees to leave. And fortunately, Jacob Rupert, one of the Yankee owners, had enough foresight to have found this 11.6-acre plot of land, which he purchased from the William Waldorf Astor estate. And on it was built this triple-tiered stadium at a cost of $2.4 million.
Oh.
Opening day, April 18th, 1923, the Yankees played the Boston Red Sox. They beat the Sox that day 4-1 with a 3-run homer hit by Babe Ruth, and that was the first home run hit here in Yankee Stadium. It kind of befit the scene at that time.
Who will be the last home run? What do you think?
The last home run here?
I mean, who do you think will hit the last home run here at the stadium? You can't.
Well, we got a way to go, and we don't know who will be here at that time.
I like Bernie.
Well, we hope to be seeing Bernie here.
There's another class actor.
He absolutely. I mean, out of all of the guys that I've met in the organization through the years, Bernie's right up on the top.
Well, I'll tell you, when Mickey Mantle passed away, number 7, God bless Mickey, you know, because we'd sit out in the center field bleachers and wave at Mickey. Hey, Mickey, you didn't always turn around, but he always waved. And then you carried the black armband on the uniform that season. But the next season, it was, we finished here in the park?
No.
Okay. The next season, the armband was off on the uniform, but Bernie kept his sleeve rolled up. And I always kind of got the impression that maybe he was still wearing that armband. It was always rolled up.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't know what that means, but I'd like to think it's the class of the man who's playing Mantle's position, and he's continuing to honor him. But I remember the uniform. I remember the. Anyway, here we are. Mickey Mantle, great teammate, 1931, 1995. Okay, that's Mickey right there.
Yeah, Mickey was the backbone of a dynasty that's unsurpassed in sports. In a 16-year period from 1949 to 1964, the Yankees went to the World Series 14 times. At one point, they had won 5 consecutive World Series from 49 to 53. Mickey came aboard in 51 and then played through 1968.